Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
Welcome back to the Dynasty Nerds Podcast. No Rich Dotson. He's out tanning those toes. But I am here, your host, Garret Price, along with my co-host, Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And Jared Wackerly.
What's up?
Oh, come on. What's that?
Yeah, there was not enough tongue
It's
there.
so much better and I'm sitting there with you guys.
Yeah,
But we're remote.
All right. Yeah, no doubt.
Yep, we are remote. Normally, our studio is at Rich's place, and he's gone. So it'd be kind of weird to record at his house. Plus, it's about 2 hours and 40 minutes closer for me to not do it at his house. So, at those opportunities, nice. I don't complain. I don't complain about it. But we are going to be covering the free agency frenzy that has happened over the past week and all of the subsequent trades that have affected fantasy football as well. So it should be a jam-packed show. We're going to try to talk about the players, who they affect, without dilly-dallying too long on the guys that, yes, technically it's a fantasy position, but it doesn't really matter. So with that, we don't need to waste any time. We're just going to get right into it. So let's start off.
Should we talk about real quick, the importance of paying attention to this time and figuring out values and new landing spots for in your dynasty leagues, before we get into it?
Sure. You could derail the show. That's fine.
Yeah. Let me just come on and take over real quick. We can just make this a Talking Dynasty episode, actually.
Basically. That's just a special guest.
Say, Matt.
All right, guys. It's been fun. You guys talk some Dynasty, and I'll be back with you guys next week. It'll be great.
But no, I think it's just worth saying. It might be obvious, but this is just a really important time to dig in a little bit, because when players move around like they have in free agency and trades and stuff, it creates a value, it creates different values for the players, and it impacts the teams they join, the players that are on them, and then the teams that they left too. So it's a really good opportunity to, buy low or sell high. So
it creates opportunity. Yeah, it creates opportunities within your league as well. If there's somebody that's not paying close enough attention to all the moves that are going on, they're kind of going based off of their remembrance of last year.
Yeah.
You can all of a sudden get a guy that really pops and has a great value for a discounted price. So this is the time to do it.
And the best is when there's a new free agent to a team that somebody in your league really likes.
Yes.
Oh yeah, new running back. Yeah, he's gonna dominate this year. And you're like, bro, they're gonna draft somebody in a few weeks here that's gonna totally supplant this guy. But have fun with them. I'll trade you a second.
Yep.
So and there's some players like that we'll definitely be covering and discussing for sure. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's start off with the quarterback position. And some years you don't have a lot of movement at quarterback, but we did have some interesting moves at the QB position. The guy that got paid the most, so we'll start with him, Sam Darnold. He signed with the Seattle Seahawks after a big season with the Minnesota Vikings last year. 3 years, $100 million contract. Matt, this move for Sam Darnold, this was something that we had kind of been talking about a little bit in the offseason when we were talking about drafting him. And I know I was drafting him fairly high in some mocks and things like that. And one of the big kind of not red flags, but pushbacks were, yes, we're comfortable drafting him that high once he's actually signed. The deal's done, though. How has that changed his value for you?
I think it's a nice landing spot. Obviously, they went out and subsequently kind of took away one of their best weapons there in Seattle. But
sure.
At the same time, they went out and got another guy. So we'll talk about all that stuff. But the value itself in the contract, 3 years, $100 million, they want this guy to succeed, right? I mean, just that kind of money says that. I have heard that there's a 1 year, there's basically an out after 1 year on that. I don't think any of the financial terms, the last time I checked, have actually been all the details of the financials have been released yet to actually know that for sure. But it sounds like that's kind of the rumor. So, I mean, for now, I think we go forward as Sam Darnold's obviously the guy this year, and they're hoping that he's the guy going forward, I think, with this contract.
Jared, your thoughts?
Good landing spot. I wasn't sure if he was going to stay in Minnesota or not. You know, I was curious like what they were going to do. So obviously this is good for JJ McCarthy. There's still some runway left to see if Minnesota's still going to bring in someone. I know there's some rumors of Aaron Rodgers, but I've seen like both sides of that, like saying that they're not interested. So JJ McCarthy right now definitely gets a bump from this. You know, I don't love Seattle as like a whole. There's a lot, you know, there's a lot of moving pieces right now. So I don't think that I will be a buyer in this situation. If anything, I'd probably be looking to sell if I could. I've never really been a big Darnold fan. I know he had a great year last year. But I think it says something that they didn't bring him back to. And I know they drafted JJ McCarthy, so he's there and they invested high draft capital in him, but you know, if he played so well and they really, really liked him, he's a quarterback. You're going to retain him. So I don't know. And I know there's a big contract too. So maybe I'm reading too much into that, but I think I'd be looking to sell. And I was looking up, you know, some trades that went down for Darnold, and he's going for a late first. You know, I'd love to get a first back for Darnold, or an early second. What are your guys' thoughts on that price? Like, what are you doing?
So it is tough. I mean, because they obviously went out and got him. Seattle wanted him, but that contract is kind of two-faced. If there is that clear 1 year out, you know what I mean? In the fact that they gave him what looks like security, but in fact, it's really just they're kind of able to cut their losses pretty quickly if that 1 year kind of clause is true in it. So it's a bit of a mixed signal from my standpoint from what the team is saying. I would love it if it was, hey, this is 3 years, 100 million, and 75 million of it's guaranteed. And there's, you know what I mean? Like, no matter what, you're there for at least 2 years, but most likely all three. So as far as value, if you're one of these people that obviously you drafted him early and you've kind of been up and down with this guy, and all of a sudden he's got a first round value, I could see why you'd want to get rid of him and kind of get out from underneath him and get you at least recoup that first round draft pick that you used to get him originally. So I think that makes sense. And that's probably why Sam Darnold's going to be one of these guys that's moving around quite a few leagues. Because I think there's the people that have had him forever might want to sell him, and all the people that kind of saw what he did last year, there might be some interest in him. And if they see the 3 year 100 million and don't dig in on when they can really get out from underneath that, they might think there's some security that might not really be there.
It's an interesting landing spot with Clint Kubiak as the new offensive coordinator. You know, he's a pretty good offensive mind. For a couple weeks there, it looked like he even fixed the Saints last year, which would have been hilarious. But obviously everything kind of came crumbling down there. But it is a name that inspires some confidence, guy to get a little bit excited about. But it is tough. I know they've lost some offensive line, like their offensive line there isn't super great.
Kind of in a rebuild.
They are kind of in this like weird mini rebuild, but yet they bring in Cooper Kupp and they have Jackson Smith and Jigba, but they let go Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
Tyler Lockett, thank you. Yeah. Minnesota receiver call out there. But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily like the most exciting landing spot, but if you look at all of the potential landing spots realistically that he had, this is probably the best one. Like, are the Jets better? Are the Giants better? Are the Steelers better? Are that like this was probably one of, if not the best, really true available option for him.
I mean,
my main thing was just to see if like what was going to happen with him. I wasn't sure. Like I wasn't sure if he was going to get a deal like this to be a for sure starter. And I know, Garrett, you and I went back and forth on this with text messages a little bit.
Technically, I was going against Grok, it sounded like.
Yeah, no, it's not. I was playing around with it. I forget what I was doing. I think I made it sound like Rich or something.
Yeah, and it was Bryce Young versus Sam Darnold, and I was debating Grok basically as Rich.
Yeah, I was testing it out, the new one. It was actually pretty good. Anyway,
it was.
Yeah, now that he's landed, I forget what I was even saying. Matt, go ahead.
I mean, you cut me off, and now I forget what I was going to say too. So it's all
Damn it.
gone, man.
All good. Perfect opportunity
Garrett, are
to
you
move
selling
on.
though, or like what are you doing? Would you
Overall, I think
it
it's
depends on team composition, but
it does. I think he's more of a true hold for me. I don't think like right now, if somebody's selling him, they're gonna want like, hey, give me your 110. And I don't really want to give the 110, but if I'm selling him, I'm probably only able to recoup a second, and that doesn't feel like quite enough. So I think he's kind of just in that awkward hold range unless somebody has a very strong opinion about him one way or another in your league. Like,
Yeah.
I think he's probably just, if you had him, you got a nice value bump. Congratulations. If not, like, now is probably not the best time to go buy him.
yeah, I'm definitely not buying. But if he's my third or fourth QB especially, definitely shopping him around. I would even take an early second, I think. But all right.
Well, let's talk about the other guy that gained some value at the quarterback position, Justin Fields. Justin Fields, in a way, got a similar-ish type deal. Obviously, the money was better for Sam Darnold, but he got 2 years, $40 million, so definitely got starter money, but similar type of thing. It's really just sounding like a one-year deal where, hey, we'll give you 20 mil for 1 year, low-end starter money, and let's see if you've got it or not. Like, this is probably his last real shot to prove himself as a starting caliber quarterback in this league. The hard part is the Jets seem to be in a similar spot as the Seahawks, and maybe even more so, where
I think they're
we're
worse.
seeing a lot
Yeah.
of offensive linemen getting shipped out of town, and Devontae Adams is obviously gone. So it's one of those scenarios where you're like, I'd really like to see Justin Fields in a good situation, but I just don't know if that's ever going to happen. He got drafted into a tough situation in Chicago, went to a situation in Pittsburgh that was okay last year, but the writing was on the wall from the beginning that they wanted Russ to be the guy. And then he goes to this situation, and it's going to be probably very similar to his Chicago days where bad offensive line, really only one pass catcher of note. And before it was DJ Moore, now it's Garrett Wilson. Like, it just kind of feels like a repeat of Chicago. So I like the kid. I like the kid a lot, and I think he could have a good fantasy year in 2025, but I do genuinely worry about his long-term value.
I think that's wise to worry about it. I almost wish that he was forced. I wish the quarterbacks in this draft were a little bit better, and he was forced to like accept a backup role somewhere where he
The
could
Sam Darnold
literally,
role, the Gino Smith
yeah,
role.
like literally, yeah, the Geno Smith route where you literally just disappear and learn how to play quarterback for like 3 or 4 years. People kind of forget about you, and then all of a sudden you get your shot, and it's like, oh my god, this dude can play football at the NFL level. Great, because right now I do think this is kind of like his last real shot at this thing. And I still don't think he's progressed any. I think that's why Pittsburgh kind of brought Russ in at the end of the year. He kind of is what he is at this point. And if you can't go through progressions and kind of do that from a pocket, then I mean it's gonna be tough, man. I don't know. So for me, I agree that I think Justin Fields, because they don't have anyone else there, is going to have a solid year this year. So if you're looking for a short term guy and you get him at a good price, I think that's great. But I don't see much of a long term value for him right now. I do think by the end of the year they're going to be in a position to just draft a quarterback next season.
yeah, I think there's plenty of upside here with Fields. I know his value right now is late 20s in the quarterback rankings. So if he plays well this year, and with the fact that he's probably going to be the starter, so if he's the starter, he's going to produce fantasy points. I mean, he's rushed for over 1,000 yards in 2022, so he has that rushing floor. So what you pay for him, like he's going for 2 seconds, it seemed like right now. I know there are some future firsts in there. I probably wouldn't want to pay a first. If I can get him for 2 seconds, I would definitely buy him for that, because one, like he's going to produce for me. And then two, if he produces and he plays well, there's future there, and like there's upside in the value that he's going to get back on paying that. So I wouldn't mind buying Justin Fields. I love that he's pairing back up with Garrett Wilson. I know Garrett Wilson wanted him. So they are reunited after their days of being a Buckeye.
I think this is actually, like, on first glance, I think people thought this might be bad news for Garrett Wilson. I don't think it actually is. I get it that Justin Fields isn't the most efficient passer, but let's remember that when DJ Moore was the only show in town, the best year of his entire career was with Justin Fields. And
Wide
so
receiver
Justin
8.
Fields, especially when you have a quarterback that just loves to go to his first read, Garrett Wilson's going to be his first read. So it's going to be, hey, I either throw the ball to Garrett Wilson or I'm running it.
Run. Yeah.
Yep. And that's going to be the offense. So for fantasy purposes, I think this is actually low-key good news for Garrett Wilson owners.
It's better than it's like there is plenty of other situations where it could have been worse. So I looked up what Garrett Wilson was going for. He's mid first. I mean, that's expected. I wouldn't mind paying that for Garrett Wilson.
I would pay mid first easily.
Yeah. Just a single first. Yeah.
Especially
Absolutely.
this year too, with the kind of lack of high end talent at the wide receiver position, I would definitely do that as well.
Right.
What do you guys think? Would you rather have Justin Fields or Sam Darnold for this year coming up? Because I think both of us, you'd rather have Fields, and it's all the rushing upside, right?
Rushing upside and just the upside. Yeah. If he plays.
But how about if you look, 2 years down the line? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
he's riskier.
That's the balance.
Too.
That's the balancing act. Like, I mean, like if you're paying a similar price, would you rather have a guy you're going to have for 3 years, or just more of the flash in the pan? And that's going to be team dependent, obviously, but that's kind of how I differentiate those two guys, because
I think that's fair.
If I was looking for a more long-term option, I would shoot for Sam Darnold, because I think he's got a better shot at sticking.
Yeah, do I need a steady quarterback 3 that I could have for a little while, that when I need him to fill in on bye weeks, he's solid, I don't have to worry about it? But if I'm a rebuilding team and right now I'm just going for upside, like where can I get value? Where can I get upside? Who might stick? Like Justin Fields is an intriguing option because he's a true lottery ticket in every sense. Like there's an 80% chance that he's not a starting quarterback next year. And I'm pulling that percentage out of my butt, but like in my mind, there's like a 80% chance
that feels about right.
Not the starting quarterback next year. But if he is, we're talking about a guy
2026. You're saying not to,
correct
next year.
Correct.
I don't want that statement to come.
We're already
wrong.
in.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, it could get clipped, and then I look like an idiot. Like he's not even the starter after signing that contract. No, I think he's a starter in 2025, but I think there's an 80% chance he's not the starter in 2026. But if he is, that means he probably had a dynamite season. And there is elite fantasy upside. We've already seen him be a top 6 guy in the past. So, like, it's the risk reward with Justin Fields that makes him so much of an enigma.
Yeah, and absolutely. Just when they're on the field, if they're both starting, would you rather start Justin Fields or Sam Darnold?
Oh, Fields.
It's Fields.
Yeah, all day. So I think that kind of settles that, because
they
are the similar price tag right now.
Yeah. Right. We have not heard back from Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. It basically sounds like whatever Aaron Rodgers decides to do, Russ gets the sloppy seconds. It's kind of what it sounds like at the moment. So we'll see what happens. It sounds like the Giants and the Steelers are really the two teams that are likely going to be one guy's in one spot and one guy's in the other. We're not going to cover that until we really know. So We'll get to the guy that was traded in just a moment, but there is one more kind of interesting signing, and he's not technically the starter, but he did sign for $14 million for a single season, and it's basically Justin Fields' brother, Anthony Richardson, another guy with crazy upside, but we just don't know what's going to happen. So, Matt, how do you feel about Daniel Jones? What does this say about Indianapolis? And how should we feel about this situation?
So, I mean, I think you texted that out to the group, and I just wrote starter. I think he's a better passer. I mean, he's not fantastic, but I think he's a better passer, and I think he kind of provides value for those targets again, which I think he's good enough to do that at least. So for me, they said they were going to bring in competition. They wish they kind of brought in competition last year for him. And Danny Dimes isn't going to blow anyone away, but I think he's a lot more, he's a much more efficient quarterback, and it's not going to take them very long to be like, all right, yeah, sorry, I know you've got tons of rushing upside, Anthony Richardson, but I mean, Danny Dimes, he can rush the ball too, and he can actually complete a pass.
Sometimes he
And
trips, sometimes he doesn't.
Sometimes the carpet monster will get him, but at least he's not overthrowing all the wide receivers and kind of derailing the offense on a regular basis.
Jared, does this feel like Marcus Mariota and Ryan Tannehill all over again?
I have it written down here that I was just waiting for Daniel Jones to get some value back, and I'm hoping to trade. I have him in a couple leagues, and I know Rich probably has him in 20. If I can get a second round pick for Daniel Jones right now, which seems to be the going rate according to our trade browser tool on the GM, and if I can get a second round pick back, dude, I'm doing that, because I mean there's still the Anthony Richardson situation there. They're still going to give him a shot. Daniel Jones is insurance on that, and I think we've seen enough of Daniel Jones to know that he's not a great quarterback. So if I can get a second rounder now, I'm going to do it.
Daniel Jones is one of those enigmas that he just has. I can't even put him
flashes he looks good. Yeah,
I can't put my finger on why he's not good and can't put it all together, because you do see flashes of things that look like an NFL quarterback. He just
does some dumb things sometimes. Like he loses games. Like loses games. Like he needs you can't do that.
You cannot do that and be an NFL quarterback long
term.
So
many plays that just like loses.
But at the same time, I mean, Anthony Richardson's as exciting as the guy is. Yeah, he also just misses targets and just is off on his throws and is like a mess from the fundamental standpoint that never really got started. You know what I mean? It's like, so they kind of don't have, neither one of these guys great. To me, I think Daniel Jones is the better quarterback out of those two.
Quick Isaiah Likely-o-meter real fast here.
All right.
Isaiah Likely-o-meter, and this is quarterback, so you can use quarter points, 1 to 10. Likelihood that one of Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson is the starting quarterback for the Colts in 2026.
Ooh.
It only has to be one.
4.25.
I was going 3 something. 3. I'm going to go 3.5, 3.5.
Okay. So we're not feeling super confident. I'm in a similar boat. I was going to say 4.75, so just below our like 50-50 mark, which should be 5.5, but for some reason it's 5. Just below our 50-50 mark. I don't feel great. I think this front office, Chris Ballard's been there a while. I think if this team is not a legitimate like good team, makes the playoffs this year, I think the front office is gone. I think the head coach is gone. I think we could be clearing house, and then they get their quarterback. So
you just like read my mind. That was going to be my question out to you. Because that's the same way I feel is that they're all going to be gone, and unfortunately, they're hanging their hat on Danny Dimes and Anthony Richardson, who can't throw the ball. So it's unfortunate. You never want to see people lose their job, but that is one of those front offices and head coaching staff. So I'm just kind of looking at it and going, all right, yeah, this they're on their last leg, unfortunately, already.
They just struck out with that quarterback pick. Because other than that, I mean, they have some good pieces on offense other than quarterback. Yeah.
They do. It's unfortunate. They had a really good offensive line for a while too, and
yeah. Josh Downs is
a good player. Obviously, Pittman's a good player. If Adonai Mitchell ever got straightened out, he'd be a good player. But if he doesn't, that looks like a black eye again against this.
He needed that kind of quarterback. He needed a leader, a guy that's like a veteran, trustworthy. Like he needed Matthew Stafford. He needed one of those kind of guys, and he unfortunately just didn't.
For all their sake, you got to hope Daniel Jones is the starter. It's not the best option, but it's the best option they have. It's better than Richardson. Yeah,
he's better than tap out Richardson.
It's orphan season over at myffpc.com. Yes, head over there. If you use promo code NERDS, we're going to give you $25 off any entry into any contest or league. If that's a $35 league, you're just now paying $10, but you could be in a league up to $2,500. $500 over at myffpc.com. The nice part is if you want to play high stakes fantasy football, you don't have to worry about the league folding and some sketchy manager running away with all the money. It is the best place to go play Dynasty fantasy football. And the FFPC Dynasty Orphans are being auctioned off now. Find a diamond in the rough when you buy your next Dynasty team. It's just like you're shopping on eBay. Go to myffpc.com, enter promo code NERDS, and you'll get $25 any new startup at myffpc.com. All right. We had 2 quarterback trades. Rich gave his very lengthy thoughts on Kenny Pickett that had very little to do with Kenny Pickett, but just his whole feelings about being a Browns fan. It was a fantastic rant, like 10+ minute rant. It was fantastic. If you have not,
is it on our YouTube?
It's I think it's on Rich's personal page, but it's also a Nerd Herd, a Nerd Herd episode where he did the rant. So go.
Oh, is it?
Join the Nerd Herd. Yep. So Kenny Pickett, I don't think we need to talk much at length. I think everybody assumes he's not the opening day starter. We're drafting somebody more than likely, or
there's a chance we might not draft somebody.
Oh no, don't say that.
He's a 4th round pick. Like that's like his price tag right now. I'm just saying it might be worth
it for how cheap it is.
So
yeah,
I mean, I think
honestly, I think if Pickett does start in Stefanski's system, I don't think he does terrible. I think he fits Stefanski's style of offense pretty well from watching him at Pitt. Like they ran pretty similar offense. So
I'm actually with you. I'm with you a little bit, Jared. And I don't want to be. I don't love Kenny Pickett, but I think what they did is go out and they upgraded their backup quarterback. Dorian Thompson-Robinson was the guy that they traded. And listen, we've seen him for a couple of years. We know he's not a fit at all in this offense. So they went out and They went out and got a guy. They swapped players and gave a 5th round pick and did better. Their backup quarterback position is better than it was. And if they don't take a quarterback with the first pick, maybe they get a 2nd round guy or something like that. Now you at least have a quarterback that you can stick in there. They can, whomever they pick can kind of learn a little bit before they're thrust into the starting role. And I think it's good. And it also gives Kenny Pickett a chance to operate a different offense than he was doing there in Pittsburgh. And I think Kevin Stefanski's offense, I do think it's a timing based thing. He's not going to be throwing it down the field. I think they're going to get back to the run game. I do expect them to go out and draft running back kind of heavy or early for the Browns, because I think that's what they need to do. They need to run the ball and play to that defense. And whomever the quarterback is going to be doing some heavy play action type of stuff and maybe some rollout type of work, which I think Kenny Pickett can do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
let's
move to the guy that probably has more fantasy relevance now that was traded, and that's Gino Smith. Gino Smith traded to the Las Vegas Raiders, kind of the last big quarterback move of this offseason so far. Reunites with his former head coach there with Pete Carroll. This is a really interesting situation because we're looking at an offense right now that does not have many playmakers on offense outside of Brock Bowers. He's really the only one. Jacoby Myers to an extent. We'll see what else they add to this offense, but this is a team that's rumored to add potentially Ashton Genty. I've seen Tet McMillan mocked there. I've seen this is a team screaming for some offensive talent. Do we see this as a Gino buy window, a Gino sell window? And I don't think this is necessarily changes much of my opinion on Brock Bowers at all. I think it's probably kind of business as usual for him, unless you guys have a strong opinion otherwise.
I think Gino's better than O'Connell. Yeah.
Ditto.
Okay.
I think anything you've got going on here is better than O'Connell and obviously Gardner Minshew. So Gino, I think, is a slight uptick for Bowers. And I think
the only reason
Myers,
I struggle with that is it very well could be. But with what he did as a rookie, those quarterbacks were clearly comfortable with just saying, here, Brock, take the ball. Just take it. Just take the ball. Gino might be a smarter quarterback and actually know how to run an offense. So
And unless
while
they upgrade,
I don't think it's bad news for him, but I don't necessarily know that he's going to. It was kind of like the Jameis Winston effect, where like he was not a good real life quarterback, but man, he was good for fantasy. Like those guys just force fed Brock Bowers the ball. Gino might distribute it a little bit more.
It's hard to rely, or it's hard to think Brock's going to keep that type of production up. But I mean, elite production. Like I still expect him to be high end, like top.
For sure.
Top the.
But for sure, I'm not saying
Pete
a
Carroll,
down thing. I think it's just
there's a
lateral move for him.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes there. So Pete Carroll's going to want to run the ball a little more, and if they pick Genty, like they're going to do that. So, I mean, I wouldn't buy him. I'd probably hold him, honestly. What are you going to get, a 3rd round pick? I'd probably rather hold on to a starting quarterback.
Oh, I bet you could get.
I looked. It was like a 3rd round pick for the most part.
Oh, really?
So,
then he's a huge buy if that's the case. Any starting quarterback, I mean, should be worth at least an early second.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge buy.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gino Smith at the 3rd price would totally be a buy. Jacoby Myers is a serviceable player. They need to get help though. I mean, it's Jacoby Myers second, and he's a distant second as far as talent goes to Brock Bowers. And obviously, there's even rumors that Michael Mayer might be on the move. They've been trying to kind of actively trade him. So I wouldn't get used to that combo for very long, which is weird to me. I feel like Mayer and Brock Bowers can be on the field at the same time. They're very different players. So I don't know if they're just trying to kind of cash in order to get a different position, just get more capital and kind of put that into another spot on the offense or on the team somewhere. But I don't know why you get rid of Mayer unless you just don't really like the skill set or something like that. I mean, which is, new coach, it could be like totally his prerogative to do that. So we'll see. I don't know. Vegas is interesting because I think it's a team that kind of got a spark from the Tom Brady ownership kind of purchase, whatever that was, and then it seems like he's kind of running a little bit of the football operations. So I think there's a little bit there. And Pete Carroll, for some ungodly reason, is the oldest guy ever, but still has like a ton of youth and energy. And it's still like I still feel good about him being a coach in the NFL. Like I think he's gonna breathe some life here into the Vegas Raiders, but it might take a little bit of time. So I think Gino's kind of a holdover guy and a guy that's going to be there for the next couple of years. And then Pete will be looking for his new guy coming down the pipes.
Real quick. And I looked up the trades in the trade browser, and it's more like a second, or even I've seen a first.
Okay.
A few times.
That makes more sense to me, because I was going to say a 3rd round pick for a starter. That seems pretty cheap. So, but still, even at a mid second, like I would probably be willing to gamble on that as my 3rd quarterback. He's been real steady, and it's a system he knows.
It is. They never gave him a new deal, though, did they? Or did that?
I don't think they did. I think it's the same.
I don't think they ever announced it. Yeah, I don't think they ever announced like a new deal, which is weird. You normally, when you trade for a guy, you kind of throw some years on it or some funny money or something on there to kind of make him feel good.
I don't know.
Just don't break out into mine, and we're good. So I mean that's Gino's last year. So I'm looking at his contract now. 2025 is his last year on that deal.
Yeah.
So interesting.
He's old.
It's a little side note right there. He's 34. He'll be 35 come the season. So maybe even smaller of a window there. They traded a 3rd, so you'd think they'd want to get at least another couple years out of the guy, but who knows?
You would think. All right. Well, let's move to the running back position. It wasn't the strongest running back free agent class, especially compared to the class that we had last year. But there were 2 guys that did cash in. The first one, Aaron Jones, he re-signed with this Minnesota Vikings team. He went back there for 2 years, $20 million. I don't think there's much to break down. It's going to be what you saw last year. Jordan Mason, they traded for Jordan Mason. So we should probably talk about those 2 guys together. Yeah. They traded for Jordan Mason. So the way I read that, and I could be wrong on this, and so you guys tell me what you think, but Jordan Mason, he got a 2-year deal as well in that trade. I see this as, hey, Aaron, We think you're a really good player. We're still willing to give you $10 million a year, and obviously some of that is with bonuses and whatnot. So we'll see if he can get all of that. But we're willing to give you that because we think you're a talented player. But we know you're getting older. We know you were banged up for us last year. Let's focus more on the receiving game. We'll give you maybe a few less touches between the tackles, and we'll let Jordan Mason kind of take a little bit of that grinding there. So while this is good news because we know it works for Aaron Jones in Minnesota, I would expect maybe slightly worse numbers because of the Jordan Mason addition. Jared, do you see that differently, or do you see that the same way?
No, I think you hit it on the head. I think that's exactly what they wanted to do by bringing in Jordan Mason. They struggled in short yardage situations last year, but I think, Jones will just have to be more efficient, and I think he may be able to pull that off. He's been efficient his whole career. I do like it for Jordan Mason though too. I think he is going to have some value, touchdown value. Probably not going out and buying him though, but if you do have him, I think he's a nice piece because he's still young too. And Aaron Jones, if he plays well, or Aaron Jones gets hurt or something, and he's there for 2 years, he could be their running back next year too. So I like it.
Yeah, and I think that he's going to be basically what we kind of thought maybe Ty Chandler was going to be last year, as a guy that could really complement Aaron Jones. I think they saw that Ty Chandler wasn't that guy last year and went, all right, we got to identify a better backup here, somebody else to like pair with Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
So they went out and they found their guy. They Mason got that nice extended look, and they saw that he can do kind of the things that they want. So Jordan Mason, I do think will have some standalone value, like you said, Jared. But I think the more valuable guy will probably be Aaron Jones, unless he gets injured.
Yeah.
I mean, which he has been getting nicked up. So these guys could end up kind of similar, but trading off weeks that you're able to use them, and who's the top dog kind of.
A situation fit that I loved was a big signing for the Los Angeles Chargers. They brought in Najee Harris. And as a guy that has like some Najee Harris, because he went from a guy as a rookie that I didn't really love, thought was a little overvalued, and then kind of turned into somebody that I thought became a value. So I acquired some more shares of him, and now I have a decent amount. I personally am really excited about this. Yes, it's only a 1-year deal, which you would have loved to have seen that be a 3 or 4 year deal at the running back spot, but you don't get as many of those unless you're Saquon Barkley or Josh Jacobs. So in this situation, 1-year deal could be worth up to just under $10 million, but 9.25, but guaranteed about $5.5 million there for Najee Harris. Seems like a really nice fit for a team that wants that between the tackles thumper to grind out yards. I wouldn't be surprised if there is another back maybe involved in this, but we'll see. I mean, we saw in Jim Harbaugh's time at Michigan anyway, he usually had kind of one main running back. So I'm really curious to see how Najee's used, if he's more of just that first and second down grinder type guy, goal line, that kind of stuff, or is he truly a 3-down back? Because if he's a 3-down back in this offense with this line, I mean, we could be looking at a top 10 running back season for Najee Harris here.
And that's, I think that's what their hope is. You know what I mean? But I do think they know that the depth of this class at the running back position, that they can also just go out and get a guy that probably complements him and that could project later on as a feature guy. So that's why you do a 1-year deal with a guy like Najee. It's because this draft is insane. So, get what you can out of the guy for a year. If he ends up panning out, he's already gushing about the facilities there, and I think LA compared to Pittsburgh basically in his introductory press conference. I'm pretty sure you can get this guy back if everything works out there pretty good. So I mean, Najee to me is an intriguing buy option right now, because I think, like you mentioned, this offensive line is fantastic, and Harbaugh's going to want to run the heck out of the ball. And if he gets any passing game work, which we've seen him catch a ton of passes, we know he can do it. If he gets any of that work involved, he really does have RB1 upside. And we all know he's not terribly efficient, but if you've got a great offensive line, something he's really never ran behind, all of a sudden you're not getting hit at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage, and maybe maybe he's breaking off a couple more runs once he gets going a little bit.
I agree. I think this is the best situation he's been in since he's been a pro. I mean, the Steelers' offense hasn't been good. Their offensive line hasn't been good. I mean, he just, like you just said, Matt, this is the best O-line he's ever had. He's been extremely consistent. He's ran for over 1,000 yards the last 4 years, 6 to 8 touchdowns. So I think he's at least going to get that. And then if he can get the pass catching work that he had his rookie year, it's kind of like falling off with Jaylen Warren, taking that a little more. But I mean, who else is there right now? There's really no competition. So I love it. I would spend a second round to go get him.
Oh, I absolutely would too. If somebody was playing a little bit more hardball and they said, hey, I want, I know this is a good rookie class. I like the running backs in this class. You have pick 111. Would you rather have pick 111? Would you rather have Najee Harris? At that point, we're likely Quinshawn and all those guys above him are gone. So we're looking at Caleb Johnson, Scatabo, Dylan Sampson, like that kind of range is probably what we're looking at. So 111, or the pick. And let's say, it would be
Colston
obviously
Loveland,
different contender versus rebuild.
Scatabo. If I can get Scatabo still, I'll be pissed. Like if I gave up Scatabo to get Naji, but
so you would rather have Scatabo?
Yeah, I'd rather have the rookie coming in without the tread, and I like Scatabo enough to where I think he'll be good. So,
and Naji is 27. He just turned 27.
Tread too. He is tread on those tires, and his style of play, like he's a physical runner. So, yeah, he's getting up there. I think I'd rather have 111, Garrett, but if I can get him for like 204.
Okay. So you'd rather push it toward an earlier second if you could.
Yeah, but I'm just being picky,
You are being picky because I don't think you'd get him. You think you'd get him for just a second? You might have to throw in an additional second or something to the right buyer. Yeah. I mean, it depends on the league.
Always.
So, it is what it is. I don't know. Najee, I think an interesting player. What about the flip side of it? I know we don't have Jaylen Warren on this list, but he is kind of the last man standing there. They went out and signed what's his name?
Kenneth Gainwell.
Kenny. Yeah, thank you. All I could think of was Kenny Pickett, and I'm like, nope, it's not Kenny Pickett. No, definitely not. It's Gainwell. Kenneth Gainwell. So how do you guys see that one? I know we haven't weren't planning on discussing this, but since it is Najee related,
it impacts him though.
Adjacent.
Yeah, we should.
I feel like Warren's in a good spot, but again, this feels like another one of these things where they know the draft class is so
that's
loaded.
100% it. I think this is. I would be shocked if Pittsburgh does not walk away with a running back in this class. Like, speaking of a Scatabo, like he feels like a prime Pittsburgh Steeler type of running back. Like I could see Scatabo there.
He does.
I could see Hampton there.
Or Cleveland running back.
AFC North. Like he's an AFC North style running back. I could see Hampton there. I could see Judkins there. I could see Ollie Gordon
so
there.
Many people.
Like there's a lot of guys. And because they have a Jaylen Warren, I don't see as much of like the Travion, Dylan Sampson. Like I don't think they would go for that guy. I think it's more of that true between the tackles, like hard-nosed guys. So I'd be shocked if one of those guys in rounds 2, 3, 4 are not a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Agreed, but I wanted to mention it, so we could at least talk people off the ledge in case they're getting really hyped on the Jaylen Warren.
Yeah, Jaylen Warren's good though. I like Jaylen.
I think he's still going to be an asset. So do I.
Yeah, I think if they do draft a rookie, I think Jaylen Warren's still going to get that first crack at it. He's been there. He's the vet. Will the rookie play? Yeah, and I think Warren has some value. He's RB44 in ADP as of March 16th in Superflex Tight End Premium League. So that's pretty good value you might be able to get for a starting running back next year.
Let me go a little bit conspiracy theory here. If the Steelers do end up...
Get your tinfoil. No, get your tinfoil. We can't have this one.
I want it so bad. If Aaron Rodgers ends up being a Pittsburgh Steeler, do the Steelers figure out a way to say, screw it, we're all in. Let's get Ashton Genty. Do you think that world happens?
No.
I don't think there's any possibility. 0%.
It might.
How high do you think he's going to go, Genty?
I think the highest he will go is 6 to the Raiders. I think that's the highest possibility.
I agree with you.
Don't think that's gonna happen though. I think
Pittsburgh's pretty low, right? I mean, where are they?
They're in the 20s. They're at 21. Yeah. They're at 21, right behind Denver. So Denver would obviously take him if he's still there. But it could be a scenario where they say, all right, if he's still on the board by pick 14, 15,
we're gonna go get him.
Maybe we go get our guy. Maybe we go get it. We'll see. I don't know. It's definitely tinfoil conspiracy theory because I think the Raiders could take him at 6. I think there's a crazy world. I don't think they should, but I think there's a crazy world where he could go to New Orleans at 9. I could see a very likely world where at 10, if he's still there, the Chicago Bears take him. I think that's the most likely spot to me. All that offensive line that they've just added, they're like, okay, let's get our offense of the future. We've got Odunze. We've got DJ Moore. We've got Caleb Williams, a beefed up O-line, and of course Cole Kmet. And then let's get us some Ashton Genty for the run. Like, it's a sick offense.
We already know Ben Johnson hates DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
They're definitely looking. Yeah, they're definitely looking for a replacement there. They're just stuck with that contract for right now. So they're going to be looking for sure. So if he's there, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked if they get a running back high either. The Chicago Bears.
Well, speaking of teams that could draft Ashton Genty, at 12, we have the Dallas Cowboys. However, the Dallas Cowboys have made some running back moves. Now, to me, these are moves that do not preclude them from taking a running back early. I do not think either one of these moves, as much as Matt and I love Javonte Williams, and it's a juicy spot. It's a juicy spot for him.
I like Javonte too.
You do. You like him somewhat. You do. You're like near
I have
the
a lot
fan
of
club.
Javonte.
You're not in the fan club, but you're near the fan club. Like,
Give him a good nerd score grade. I got to look it up now.
That being said, Javonte, he goes there. It's only a 1-year, $3 million deal.
$3 million.
So nothing that screams like, yeah, he's the guy. But it's enough of a deal where you would say, if they don't find a guy they love in the first, second, early part of the third round, he could potentially be their starter. We know they've gone that route like last year with Rico Dowdle, old Zeke Elliott. They've done that. They also brought in Miles Sanders, also on a 1-year deal. Now, I could not find the money on that deal. Do you guys happen to know what that was?
It's $1.137 million for the 1 year.
So definitely not awe-inspiring.
No.
Hey, I was a 75 on Javonte.
Okay,
so
not bad.
Low on him. You were at 77.
I was going to say I was real high. I know.
Hey, he had a great rookie year. He looked great.
He did. He was a different guy. After that injury, which sucked. Same with J.K. Dobbins. All the guys I ranked high early on all got hurt. Thank God.
You got to love the landing spot here, though, right?
It's a fantastic landing spot. I do think this is a situation. I really don't think the Cowboys are going Ashton Genty in round 1, either because he's gone or because they just decide to wait because of the depth of the class. I see them more likely saying, hey, who's the best available running back in the second round? Because I could see them either taking a receiver. I could see them potentially going tight end, which I don't think they will. But they need to do something with that offensive line. Zach Martin just retired, so I think that's a very likely scenario. There's a lot of holes on defense. I just don't think running back is a huge priority for them. Now, could I see it in rounds 2 or 3, though? Yeah, I could see it as a possibility if the right guy was there. So I like these players. I like the moves as hey, you guys come in, battle in camp, probably battle with some type of rookie, and we'll kind of see how it all shakes out. But I don't think either one of these signings make me feel like, oh yeah, Javonte's the guy. Like, no, Javonte's a guy, and we'll see what he can do.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I think the money definitely kind of just shows these guys as insurance policies against exactly what you were talking about. In case they don't get a guy that they're really looking for in the second, they got to rely on like a 4th round draft pick. All right, we'll see what we got this year, and then we'll punt and do it next year again if we need to. Because I mean, both of these 1 year deals for a total of like under $5 million. So I mean, that's for 2 guys. That's chump change, nowadays, and it really doesn't buy you any security. If they find somebody that in the second round, they can easily get rid of Miles Sanders. I mean, they can cut bait on that thing, no big deal at all. $1.337 million.
Yeah,
Miles Sanders ADP is RB 97.
Worth a shot at that price, I guess.
Yeah, Javante's RB 47. So
that feels more accurate.
I mean, I think Javante has turned himself into something, right? I mean, Javante's turned himself into like a nice pass catching back. He's had 40, 50 receptions the past few years. So even if he's not the guy he once was between the tackles, he at least carries NFL value as a guy that can, pass protect and go out and catch passes. And that's gonna carry at least some weight and kind of some fantasy value along with it.
For sure. I'd like to see what his price tag is in my leagues.
Four other guys that signed kind of small deals. Now there's plenty more. We're just kind of trying to take the most fantasy relevant ones. Rico Dowdle, Raheem Mostert, Ty Johnson, Elijah Mitchell. Any one of those 4 like get you excited at all, or are they just kind of all like filler depth pieces? We'll see.
I mean, he's old as hell, but Mostert's landing spot's pretty good.
There's nobody there right now.
It's the perfect scheme. Chip Kelly there, and like he played under Chip Kelly before, so Chip Kelly was familiar with him and brought him in because he's like, hey, this guy knows how to run my offense. He's still got speed, so he's interesting to me. I'd be willing, if I'm a contender, to see what his price is, and if I can get him for like a 4th, dude, I'd do that.
It's all about health with him, at this point in his career, and mostly his entire career. If he could stay healthy, I think he'll probably be able to at least be in a rotation if they went out and spent a high draft pick on somebody, because he's just a professional running back. He's still got burst and speed. So I think he's the most interesting. Elijah Mitchell, for whatever reason, always kind of just a little bit piques my interest. So
he's just never healthy.
He's never healthy as well. So he's like almost the same guy as Raheem Mostert to me. He's just like 10 years earlier down the path. So we'll see if he does anything there in Kansas City or is able to break through. But obviously they have the top 2 guys there kind of locked on with Kareem Hunt re-signing there. And
I have a lot of Mitchell too. So. Like Mitchell is always, it's probably the last year he's a wait and hold for me. Like I'm still holding. The guy landed.
Telling me there's a chance.
Got to keep him now. Yeah,
exactly.
All right, let's move to the wide receivers. Biggest one that happened wasn't even a free agent signing. It was a trade. DK Metcalf to Pittsburgh. We talked a little bit about the Pittsburgh situation here, but we still don't know his quarterback. So the biggest question, I guess, with all of this is A, do we like the landing spot? And B, how does this affect George Pickens?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, obviously they basically traded for and then paid DK Metcalf what what George Pickens probably wanted. You know what I mean? So I think this kind of spells doom for what's his name there?
Pickens.
Thank you. I just lost it. I'm like looking at something else.
You lost it.
I know. Pickens. So I think this spells dooms for Pickens there in Pittsburgh. I mean, I don't know if I love this. I mean, I think the coach there is going to be able to manage him as well as any other coach in the league. I mean, you know what I mean? Probably better than most coaches in the league. So DK I think from that standpoint, I think it's good. And George Pickens is probably going to be on his way, if not, during the draft or something like that. It's going to be after this season. He's not going to be around after this season. And then he's going to be unleashed and kind of, unfortunately, left to his own devices, which I don't think is a great thing for George Pickens. Metcalf, I like it as long as they get a good quarterback. And for Pickens, I think this is kind of one of those man, you might want to get out from underneath him if anyone sees value in him and feels good about wherever he goes, or just there as the second guy in Pittsburgh, and you feel like it's value, go out and get rid of him, because I'm not sure the floor might just bottom out of Pickens for me.
I still like Pickens. I think this is bad for him, though. I think there's always been tension in Pittsburgh with Pickens. There always seems to be some locker room stuff going on with him losing his mind on the field and all that kind of stuff. I don't think they're necessarily as worried about that, getting a guy like DK. Like he does lose his shit on the field every now and then, but I think he's a professional, and that's kind of what Pickens is lacking right now. But Pickens is still good. It's not like that offense is really doing him any favors either. It's Arthur Smith scares me for DK. I think DK's situation in Seattle was better than what it's going to be in Pittsburgh. There's who's going to be the quarterback throwing the ball. Arthur Smith is one of the lowest. He has one of the highest neutral game run script percentage. I think they're top 5 there. So they're just not throwing. There's not a lot of volume there for DK. So I don't love it.
Yeah, and they're playing in defensive struggles often, which are not fantasy friendly. You want those shootouts, those quick hitting plays, and you're playing the Steelers defense. If you're going to score, it's going to take you 8 plays, 10 plays, 12 plays. They're the long, slow, drag it out, run the clock. It's just not the fantasy friendly game script that you want. So that can be tough. Next wide receiver we're going to touch on is the guy that I guess replaces him there over in Seattle, and that's Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp was traded from the Rams to the or was it? I guess it wasn't traded. He became a free agent.
Yeah, signed to a 3-year deal.
Yeah, so it ended up not being a trade because nobody wanted to make the deal. So he was a free agent, went to Seattle, which is where he's from. He's from the Washington area, and Cooper Kupp now alongside Jackson Smith and Jigba. So obviously this is good news for Sam Darnold, who for a second looked like he was in the Justin Fields situation with basically one asset, and that was it. He at least has a second, obviously very, very professional wide receiver. Biggest thing for him past couple years has been health. But how do we feel about Cooper Kupp in Seattle alongside Jackson Smith and Jigba? Because Matt, traditionally, both these guys play the slot. Somebody's going to be moving. Is that going to hurt somebody? Is it the guy that was already there in the system that stays in the slot? Or is it the guy that's the older veteran that you let kind of continue his natural role? What gives here?
No, this is going to be a tough one to nail down. And this is, I think, going to go on into the early part of the season until we figure it out. So I don't have any great answers because I agree. I think they both play a very similar position in this offense. So until we know what the other pieces kind of around him, I think they also have MSV there as MVS. Well as an out or MVS. Sorry, as one of the outside guys. If they got another one, maybe they're just, I don't know. Maybe they're planning on rotating those guys. But I think, Bobo's there, right? Good old Bobo. I've seen Bobo getting picked up off waiver wires and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, let's not get out of hand.
I got a little Bobo. Hey, I got some Bobo.
You've been buying the Bobo. All right. I'm not buying the Bobo. I think they're going to figure it out. But I think those are the 3 best guys. And I think Jackson Smith, the Jigba, and Cooper Kupp probably end up just rotating and kind of being interchangeable in that offense as far as which guy's in the slot, which guy's going to bump out for a play, and I think they're just going to kind of move back and forth.
Coming out of college, I think we all agreed, we thought Njigba could play the outside if he was asked to do so. He was that good of a wide receiver. So Njigba ran 84% of his routes from the slot last year. Cooper Kupp ran 65% of his routes from the slot last year. So yeah, we'll see. It's weird, but I think Kupp's situation he was in Los Angeles is a little better than what he's going into here. So, and he just continues to tick down. So, I mean, if this is a nice bump for Cooper Kupp, I'm willing to trade and get out of my Cooper Kupp shares for 3rd round pick. Would you guys take a 3rd? I mean, for Kupp?
I think he's the perfect, is he are you a contender or not? Like, if you're not a contender, like, easy, like, move off my team. I'd probably try to get more than a third. I'd probably try to get a late second. I think you probably could. But I think if you're a contending team and I'm looking at, I got the 212. Yeah, I'll give you the 212 to get Cooper Kupp on my team, or I'll give you my pick next year, my 26 second to get Cooper Kupp. Like, I would have no problem doing that as a contender, because I think Cooper Kupp can probably be a fairly steady wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 4 for you. So he's either like your third receiver or your first flex guy most weeks. And you feel really good about that as a contender if that's the role he's playing. If he's your wide receiver 2, do you really have a contending team?
Yeah.
The answer is no. No, you don't.
All right. Devontae Adams, another old guy. So guys, musical chairs. So DK Metcalf.
Very musical chairs. Yeah.
Yes. DK Metcalf leaves. So Cooper Kupp replaces him. But now somebody needs to replace Cooper Kupp in LA. And that falls to Mr. Devontae Adams. So he gets a 2-year, $46 million deal. So obviously a very lucrative deal to sign there in LA. And he showed last year that he still got it. And we're seeing some of these receivers play a little bit longer and a little bit longer. Adam Thielen's still playing. We're going to get to DeAndre Hopkins in a second, although he had a bit of a downturn last year. Cooper Kupp, obviously. So Devontae Adams is kind of in this group of guys that, they are old. They're a little wrinkly. They're not as fun to look at on your dynasty roster. But these are the kind of guys that can still win you championships. And in a way, Devontae is almost a better fit for this offense than Cooper Kupp, because now Puka can really thrive out of the slot, and you have a guy in Devontae Adams on the outside. So, Jared, I don't know what you think, but I'm really excited if I'm a contending team and I have Devontae Adams.
I agree with you. I think this is a great situation. Stafford's proven that he can support 2 wide receiver 1s for fantasy. So I think it's great offense, obviously, under Sean McVay. And right now he's wide receiver 45 in ADP. So I think you're getting some pretty good value by trying to acquire Devontae Adams as a contender.
And I think this is the best case scenario, because obviously we've seen him do well no matter where he's gone. It doesn't really matter. But Derek Carr, I think, was a slight downturn, as far as the quarterback position. And, Aaron Rodgers isn't what Aaron Rodgers used to be, but Matthew Stafford can sling it, and he can still throw the hell out of the ball. I think it is going to be a match made in heaven for Devontae Adams, because he's probably going to be playing with the best quarterback he's played with since Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay.
So
Agreed.
He's going for like a 2nd-round pick. Would you guys do that?
Yeah. I mean,
if I was a contender, I would. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that one's like, I feel better about him than I do Cooper Kupp. So if I'm still given that same 211, 212, that's pretty easy for me. Honestly, I would even be willing to throw on the magical third to get the deal done.
2027 third.
Yeah, the extra third that everybody always wants, but only has an 8% hit rate. Literally 8%.
It's like getting nickels.
That's right. Danny Nichols. But that being said, did
you say something about nipples? What did you say?
Nickels, like first or like dollars, and I don't know. I was thinking like seconds or quarters. That was going through my brain.
All right.
Thirds or nickels.
All right. So the wide receivers that are left, we got one more big one to kind of talk about, and that is not a free agency deal, but a trade that was made. Deebo Samuel ended up getting traded. This is something that we've been talking about quite a bit on the podcast, the possibility of him being traded for a while. It did end up coming together, and he is now a Commander. This one has some pretty big ripple effects on both sides of things. So, Matt, how do you feel from either side, the Washington perspective or the San Francisco perspective? Like, how do you feel this kind of changes and moves things? Because to me, this is a lot of arrows pointing up for a lot of people involved.
Yeah, no doubt about it. from the San Francisco standpoint, with Brandon Ayuk coming off an ACL, obviously Juwan Jennings is a really nice player, but Ricky Pearsall, their first round draft pick from last year, to me gets a bump because I feel like he's going to have the best shot at kind of establishing himself early on in the season as the number one guy. Because I think you know what you got in Jennings. He's a good player, but I don't think he's a number one guy. So Pearsall, I think, has that shot to kind of take that mantle and run with it if he gets off to a hot start here. So I think from that standpoint, that's how I see the San Fran side of it. I mean, what are they getting in Washington? I think it's a good player for them. I don't know that his fantasy value, Deebo Samuel's fantasy value, is
Any
leaps
different?
and bounds better. I think it's pretty similar.
I agree.
For him, he's going to need to stay healthy. He's going to need to prove that he's going to come in shape. I think if you get traded from one team to another, maybe that motivates a guy. So hopefully, but if not, if we see the same sort of kind of
Lackluster
guy that doesn't look like lackluster type of, he doesn't look like he's in great shape when he comes into camp.
Yeah.
Then I would expect to see a lot of the same, and you're just hoping for wide receiver 2 numbers from him on weeks that he's healthy, but nothing crazy high end.
If he can repeat what Olamide
Zaccheaus, yeah.
Dude, he was a beast in the playoffs for like those 2 weeks.
Eaton.
No, I'm just kidding. But I think it's good for everybody involved other than McLaurin, maybe. I don't know. I think McLaurin's fine. But I
think McLaurin's just a better route runner and better wide receiver. Like I don't think that anything's getting taken away.
Right.
If anything, maybe it gives something else for the defense to think about, because they really didn't have to think about anything else. It was just make sure Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
And it definitely helps.
I think it helps. Yeah, it definitely helps the quarterback for sure.
All right. So the rest of these, I know this used to be a big name, but Devontae Adams to Baltimore, obviously yucky situation. Christian Kirk
not
traded to Houston. Mike Williams to the Chargers. Devontae Turpin back to Dallas. Darius Slayton back to the Giants. Any of those stick out to you? I mean, Matt, I'm sure there's one of those that sticks out to you, but any of those that stick out to you guys as worthy of discussing?
I love the Christian Kirk signing, dude. I mean, he's cheap, really cheap, and he plays a slot. He's primarily a slot receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick Caley, their new offensive coordinator, he was a passing game coordinator under Sean McVay. They love to feed the slot. So with Stephon Diggs coming off injury and Tank Dell suffering his terrible injury, I mean, they need a wide receiver, and I think he's proven in the past that he can be a good fantasy receiver. So I actually like the Christian Kirk.
It's a good call.
I'd be willing to even try to go acquire him. Yeah, if for a third or 2/3.
I'm with you there. I mean, so it's Nico and him, and because Diggs is a free agent, right?
Diggs is a free agent.
Injured,
yep.
and not signed. Yeah. So I mean, you love Tank Dell's great. I just don't think we're going to see him at all this year, and who knows what we're ever going to get out of him when he comes back. So I really do think it's those two guys, and we've obviously seen the distribution there from CJ Stroud is really good. So I think both those guys are going to be involved pretty highly.
All right, let's move to the tight end. Not a lot of tight end movement, although there was a guy that was cut. That was a former top 5 tight end, and that was Mr. Evan Ingram. He now went to Denver, which is a team that really was looking for some talent in the receiving game. Aside from basically it was just Cortland Sutton, and then at the end of the year we saw a little Marvin Mims bump, but they really needed some more weapons in that offense for Bo Nix. Matt, I know you're a big Bo Nix guy. Is this a big asset for him? And can Evan Ingram return to being a top 6 tight end in this Payton.
Sean Payton.
Sean Payton, thank you. Sean Payton system.
Moment.
I have them all the time, so it's all good, man. So yeah, Evan Ingram. Obviously, am I excited for Bo Nix? Yeah,
Are you?
This is a good. This is a good weapon for my boy Bo. But he does have to stay healthy.
My boy Bo.
Got some Bobo here.
You got some Bobo. This is my kind of Bobo that we're talking about. Bobo Nix. Evan Ingram he's a good player. I don't know if he's the same player he was 2 years ago because he was kind of nicked up all year last year. I don't see why he wouldn't be able to return to that. He's not ancient. He's like 31-ish. So I think it's a nice move. I don't know that this is the Joker that Sean Payton was talking about at this point. I think maybe earlier on in his career, maybe he could have been seen like that. But I think he's a good receiving tight end, the best one that they've had there in a while. And I still think that's the Joker has been yet to be found on this. That's going to come through the draft, but it's a nice piece. Evan Ingram's just got to stay healthy.
Totally agree with you. I got really nothing else to add on that. It's better than what they had, and I think he's going somewhere where it's better than where he was. So yeah.
Last two signings don't change much for fantasy football purposes. Juwan Johnson, he ended up going back to New Orleans, re-signed there for 3 years, $30.75 million deal. And then Mike Gesicki, he went back to the Cincinnati Bengals, who had a mini breakout year. I don't know that it would be a true breakout, but had a solid season there with Joe Burrow and shined in games when T. Higgins wasn't there. But he goes back there on a 3-year deal worth $25.5 million. So that more or less wraps up all of the fantasy relevant free agent news. Obviously, we're still waiting to hear on a few players, Rodgers, Wilson. We're still waiting on J.K. Dobbins, still waiting on Stephon Diggs. So there are still some names out there that could make things a little bit interesting. But for now, that wraps everything up. Matt, anything else before we move on to our next show that you guys will hear tomorrow, which is our post-free agency mock draft? Jared, anything for you?
Nope. Give me that adios.
Hey, Nerd Herd, Dynasty Nerds has an incredible new offer from Underdog Fantasy for new customers. When you sign up as a new customer, you'll get a chance at their new customer free pick. But that's not all. Underdog is also offering incredible deposit bonuses. Use the promo code NERDS when you first sign up, and Underdog will give you up to $1,000 in bonus cash with your first deposit. That's right, $1,000 to kickstart your fantasy football journey. Don't miss out on this fantastic opportunity. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app. Sign up today with promo code NERDS and start your journey to fantasy football glory today. Must be 18, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. In New York, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. And in Tennessee, call 1-800-889-9789.